All right, Chairman.
Okay, good. Okay, we'll start the City of Olivet's Planning Community Development Design Commission for December. Sorry, guys, I am December 7th in order for tonight. Thank you. Brian, would you please call the roll?
Absolutely. Member Laura Ragsdale,
Present.
member Brian Lewis, present. Member Tim Spiegelglass,
Here.
member Dana Rosenberg,
Present.
Vice Chairman Carol Wagner,
Present.
and Chairman Robert Jagal,
Present.
and member Sam Wallach.
Absent.
Okay, let it also be known that Carlos Trejo, City of Olivet's Planning Community Development Department's Director is in attendance, as well as Dawn Doty, Senior Planner, as well as our City Council Liaison, Councilmember Missy Waldman's in attendance. Carlos, is there anybody else that I'm missing?
No, sir.
All right, very good. That being said, we'll proceed on. I think we see some new faces from the audience, which is great because a lot of times we don't always get new faces, you know, so we appreciate everybody being in attendance. And just to let you guys know how the procedures work, we follow an agenda plan. And they'll typically with each agenda item, there's a report by Carlos or Dawn that's presented among to the commission. There'll be some discussion with commission members to staff to go over it. And then we'll typically have a time where we'll bring on the petitioner to go over some more details and ask additional questions. We also have a time for public comments related to those agenda items. But we'll call for that at the end of our discussions with the petitioner. We do ask that everybody limit their public comments to no more than 3 minutes to be respectful of everybody's time, as well as to make sure everybody's opinion gets heard. For those who are online, there's usually an icon at the bottom where you can raise your hand. And so then at that point in time, when we're ready to bring you up, we'll add you to the discussion. And then we do ask you that you make sure that your video and your microphone are on. Typically, those are muted by default, so be on the lookout for that. It'll speed things up. We've had numerous delays by trying to get people to turn their mics on. So appreciate your help in that. We also do have general public comments. These are for items that are not on the old business or any new business. And we don't have any new business, but if there's just another general comment that you would like to make, we will ask for that after we go over the comprehensive plan update. Okay. If I didn't say it already, anytime you come up to the podium, petitioners or public comments, we do ask you to state your name and address for the record too. All right. Carlos, did I miss anything?
No, sir. You have everything covered. Thank you.
Then we'll move on to the next one, comprehensive plan update. Carlos?
A couple of things. This will be a little extended in there, but I think it's important to update the commission on the current progress. Want to thank everyone that attended the draft recommendations open house where the draft framework was presented. We had over 60 residents attend the open house. Information for the comp plan update, which is really the draft framework, is available online. I'd urge all residents, commission members to go through the Olivet Comp Plan website and take the survey regarding the draft draft framework, which includes the goals, the objectives, and their additional information that was provided at that open house is also accessible now on the website, which means you can access the potential community actions, which gets more into the detail along with the draft vision. And there, I do want to talk a little bit about the comprehensive plan. Because that will be coming to the commission early next year in the process and setting up the next steps for that. So to date, we've had over 351 responses to the community vision survey back in April and May. Over 130 residents attended the community vision workshop in May. We had 352 responses to the strategy survey that was done early summer. We've had well over 2,500 visits to our comprehensive plan website. Of those, 900 are what we call informed visitors. They registered to be part of that process. 800 actually participated in the various activities that were on the website. We spent over 12 hours in meetings with small groups, including renters Asian residents, Black residents, environmental interests, residential developers and commercial developers to have small group discussions. And then we did multiple pop-ups, including Stacy Park's opening, Five Oaks opening, Warson Parks opening. And we did 2 subdivision association meetings, including Indian Meadows, and then we were last at Turkey Trot just a couple of weeks ago. So overall, one of the goals and objectives of our RFQ was to really enhance community engagement and input. And I think we've done that very successfully, especially given the numbers here. In
Carlos,
the,
how does that compare to the previous strategic plan? You know, as far as numbers, I feel like we're way above that, but I just,
the technology is different. So I didn't have as much as the internet back in 2004. We had 2 open houses that we may have reached about 100 residents. And we did also a survey in there in that process. And at that time we had Summerfest, and we did have a booth that weekend. But I think given social media, Kiana Fleming, who's here, and pushing out information through those venues really expanded our ability to engage with our residents, or for our residents to engage in the process. So,
that's great.
yes. In that process, and how all these participation opportunities were taken in, they all helped us develop, essentially put together our vision and guiding principles. So that public input led to how Shockey, our consultants, developed the draft vision, which then was reviewed by the advisory committee, the council, and the plan commission, and then was brought out for public input through our community workshops that led to the draft that we have to date. So this all goes in through a whole process of the full, organic, bottom up approach in its growth to that draft. And that community vision, again, is in a short statement, all of it is a vibrant and unique city, strengthened by its diverse population, invigorated by its opportunities for community connection, and distinguished by its dynamic sense of place. We had a couple of people question about the dynamic sense of place, because it is a carryover from the previous comprehensive plan in 2006. The sense of place is a common planning term, which means you're being integrated with your surrounding environment and you feel included. Inclusionary is that process. Dynamic is an adjective which describes that it's unique, it's personalized, it's ours, and we still feel that is, respective of the previous plan, and still what we're trying to create in our community and for our residents. So we've kept that in that process. Again, going through all the public input from the surveys, Shockey, our comprehensive plan consultants, developed the draft goals. They had public input from the strategy survey. They drafted up the objectives and potential actions. They presented those to city staff, the council, the commission. Then they went through a final review through the advisory committee, and they led to what are I believe the 8 goals that you'll find in the current draft framework in that process. That draft framework is built on 5 chapters, and these chapters are common chapters that are recommended by the American Planning Association when doing sustainable comprehensive planning and long-term planning. It talks about the built environment, economic development, healthy community, sustainability, and land use. And within each of these, you have specific goals, and then with each goal, you have certain objectives, and with each of these, you have potential community actions. I'm not going to go through all of those in there, but I urge the commission members to get engaged, take a look at those, and have a discussion or let us know if you have any questions about that. It's going to be part of the process, and this document will come to you, like I said, early next year. That being said, the next steps in the process is that all the information that was presented at the open house last week is online. You can take a survey to respond to the draft recommendations or the draft framework that is on there. You can also see all the information that was distributed through that meeting in there. And again, you can also see all the previous information that led to this point in there. So this is pretty exciting. This has been 1 year worth of work and engagement through this process. After December 15th, the public feedback will be synthesized by the consultants and put into the full plan document. And then a formal public comment period on the full plan document after the new year will come when it is distributed to the plan commission members. Plan commission will hold a public hearing. It is up to the plan commission to determine when they want to conclude that public hearing. So it could be continued or so, but it is required by state statutes that you hold a public hearing before its adoption. And then the commission itself would take action to adopt that plan in there. That's probably going to be somewhere either late January or February based on this timeline. But again, the commission now controls the timeline from this point on. And then after the commission takes action, we'll forward the document to the council for some type of acknowledgement in the process. But this is the commission's long range plan in terms of how it impacts land use and decision making in there. Be glad to answer any specific questions commission members may have. And again, urge you to get on the website. You'll see it here. You'll see the goals, the various objectives on the website. You'll see the community actions in place. So they've done a great job of synthesizing and putting a lot of that information already together. And I thought I had the website. Oh, yes, here I do. Easy one click gets you to the draft recommendations open house. You can see the video clip if you missed the meeting, the handouts, the goals, and then the survey.
The video is a great way to get caught up fast, and then you can start looking through, the plan yourself, or at least the draft of the goals and everything. So highly encourage everybody to on the commission who hasn't been part of this already, to start looking at that, because things could move fast next year. I mean, not moving fast, but it'd be better, for everybody to be kind of up to speed with it, and we'll have more productive meetings that way.
And your input on the survey is highly valued. So we would really appreciate everybody surveys you've taken before. This goes one step further in that process of assigning value to the goals and objectives. So thank you for your time so far. Really.
Okay. Any questions or comments related to that? Seeing none, I think we'll move on. We'll move on to public comments. Anybody in the audience have a public comment that's not related to any of the old business items? Seeing none, Carlos, can you please check the online?
Online, I only have Miss Pacamio, which is going to be with part of that petition for the Audi. So I'll bring her up after
Okay.
in there. Bear with me 1 second as I try to get us back into Bruce McGregor's here, so I'm really nervous.
He does that.
Yes.
To people. All right, we'll move on now to old business, and this is item A, 9115 and 9175 Olive Crossing, lots 1 and 2, related to the proposed Aldi grocery store. Carlos?
All right, Chairman, this item was introduced at our last meeting on November 16th. It is what we call community design review as part of the MU Gateway District. And more specifically, this is known as a PDD in there. In this process, the city has negotiated an agreement with the developer of Olive Crossing to develop their own zoning district. In that zoning district, they have authorized a 20,000 square foot grocer as part of their master development plan. So that is already permitted. This item is now before the commission more for aesthetic review. You are also the Community Design Review Board. So therefore you as the commission are now reviewing the proposal, not in terms of who the user is or whether the site's appropriate, but more on the aesthetics of the building and the site improvements that are proposed as part of this building in there. The design review process gives the commission 45 days to render a motion. So that motion has to take place no later than the end of this year. in here. We've already had a initial discussion with the developer. They're responding back to the commission's comments in there. I think they've done a good job of responding to the comments. Outside of, I think there's a couple of things that we'd like to discuss a little bit deeper, and then it would be up to the commission to determine if they're ready to take action. And this is part of the Olive Crossing development. It's a combination of lots 1 and 2, as you see articulated in the yellow highlighted area on the screen. It's zoned Olive Gateway PDD, and it was approved in 2021 as part of an amended conceptual development plan for Olive Crossing, and the plan development district is outlined under ordinance 2675. So at our last meeting, kind of tried to summarize the context and the issues that were discussed through the commission in there. And I urge you to go through your reports and all that. On the building was a discussion about the primary exterior building material. In there, the petitioner has provided some revisions, and we'll have a discussion with them as they go through their presentation. And this kind of extends to what that Price Road building elevation looks like. They've also provided some supplemental renderings on that. And again, talking about that both in terms, I think they've done a good job in the screening, but it really goes down to that building material. They provided some renderings to illustrate a rooftop mechanical units that will be on that, and whether they're adequately screened given the slopes and the angles and heights. And then they also have a rendering illustrating the downspouts and where they're located. I think they're identified in the same area that was noted verbally at the previous meeting, but now they're illustrated on those elevations. On the site itself, we talked a lot about the southwest corner of Hilltop on Olive and the need for some type of node. This is defined as a primary intersection under chapter 428. We've had the discussions with the petitioner, with the developer, excuse me, of Olive Crossing, and try and put some information together in there so they can put together a concept for the commission for the review. They've addressed the stripe area in front of the building. Now that's more of a concrete that they'll go through in their presentation to illustrate the changes in the materials. We'll talk about the Price Road, the screening of the dock and dumpster areas. They have another illustration that shows the landscape wall along with the vegetation, and then the drop in height that goes back there. Hopefully that will address some of the commission's concerns. One of the things we've kind of been talking about is the Olive Boulevard streetscape. In there, they've done a good job in terms of showing the vegetation that would be aligned along their retaining wall on Olive, but I think I still have a question about the street trees and that placement. And there's been discussions of whether that's part of the developers, the Olive Crossing developers' responsibility in there, and if they're noted in the street improvement plans or not. But there's probably about 10 trees that would be required along that 400 length of lot 1 and 2 along Olive. And then the last thing would be getting a little bit more deeper, but just so the commission understands the signage that's being proposed on this building, more specifically on the east elevation facing I-170. There are two wall signs, and the commission is well within its authority to authorize 2 wall signs. Most tenants that we received, the building size is a lot smaller. 20,000 square feet is significantly good size along this corridor. That's a standalone, and there's bigger than a Walgreens, and it's bigger than a CVS in there. They are proposing 2 signs on each end, and I think proportionately they work well in there. And our code limits it to 1, but the commission has the authority to permit 2. So I just want to make sure that you're aware of what you're doing in that process. I don't have any issues in there, and I just didn't want the commission not to be cognizant of that in there. We have prepared a motion for discussion if the commission is ready to entertain any action. But at this point, kind of gives you a good summary of what the key issues were from our previous meeting in there, what the responses are going to be from the petitioner. They have a prepared slideshow. You have their plans, but before handing it over to Vern and Kyle, I'd be glad to answer any specific questions.
Does anybody have any questions? Go ahead, Karen.
Carlos, I was studying the plans during the past week, and I guess one of the things that really struck me was that the rear of the building is facing out. And we have a huge emphasis on our current plan on the streetscape and front-facing buildings and the buildings interacting with the street. And I kind of need to know why they've turned the building inward instead of facing it out. I think that it's, as you said, it's large compared to everything else that we have. And in some ways, you could almost say it's facing the wrong way. And I think we need to know exactly why the developers think that that's where it should be.
And I think some of, remember, there was a conceptual plan that already illustrated this, adopted a couple of years ago that had the building and its current exit or how it was facing towards the east in there. It's a very good question, and it's one that we've struggled since the 2006 comprehensive plan and the adoption of chapter 428 in that process. Olive Boulevard is a state highway. We love to treat it like Kirkwood Road, but it's not the same in there. And that's one of the complexities of it. And we've had neighboring communities like Maplewood, you know, right near where the Quick Trip and the not the Sam's, but the Menards is at, along with Rock Hill and with the McKnight development of trying to place buildings closer to a state highway. And in this case, we have six, I think there's about 6 lanes, depending on where you count, of travel, that trying to get the building to face the street is difficult, or to be on the street and face the street is difficult because the parking fields just don't work as well. And even as you get further in, a good example is the Firestone. I mean, we recognize that, again, it is difficult to do, you know, a street facing entry on Olive Boulevard. We do want to move the buildings closer to the road to help define the road and turn the activity off of the highway. So there's more, it's a little bit safer and all that, but we are cognizant and are trying to at least make that streetscape better and more comfortable. As you'll see with the Oliver in there. Now, they actually have units along the roadway, but there's no entrances along the roadway. They're either off of Reese or on the north side of the building in there. So I think, I mean, if the goal of your question was, you know, to explain why we haven't been able to generate that, I think a lot of it has to do with Olive. Now, based on our current comprehensive plan, and I think even going into the new comprehensive plan, we don't want to be a community that has Olive and then parking lots on either side. Our goal was to have the buildings closer up there and there to help shape that roadway and then provide, you know, that sidescape. So when we did chapter 428 too, there are various illustrations that note on site planning how you can place a building up by the street but still have a side entrance in there, and that it's essential that you provide some type of connectivity to that Olive Boulevard sidewalk in there. And that's one of the things that they incorporated, was that ramp off of there to help minimize the pedestrian having to go all the way around the block to get there. So they did incorporate a lot of the guidance that's under chapter 428 to try to address that issue. So I know that doesn't answer the question of why, but it's more of, these are the obstacles we've kind of faced over time.
I had a feeling that would be your answer, but
And
I thought we needed to ask and hear what they had to say.
Any other questions or comments for Carlos? Seeing none, I think we should bring up the petition.
Brandon, I do have a clicker. Then I'll set up yours. Yes, yes, and I'll bring her up in just 1 second. I think at this point you should be able to use the clicker, and then let me bring Kyle over. So she should be transferring over.
I think your mic is on.
Hit
Press
the
the button on the, there you go. Yeah.
Thank you. Looks like she's there.
Kyle, can you hear us okay?
Yes, can everybody hear me okay?
Yes, we can see you and hear you.
Yay, great. All right.
Success.
Well, great. Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, thank you for having us here tonight. My name is Brandon Harp with Civil Engineering Design Consultants. I'm here with Vern Wundenberg, who's the Director of Real Estate with Aldi. Back from the November 16th,
If you could state your address.
oh, I'm sorry, Brandon Harp, 10820 Sunset Office Drive, St. Louis 63127.
And then be 475 Pearl Drive, out in O'Fallon, Missouri.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
It's a pleasure to be back in front of you from our November 16th meeting. We presented a full presentation of the proposed project at that time. And at the end of that meeting, we summarized some of the bullet points that you wanted us to look into further and come back and present to this commission. We wrote those down. We discussed them at the end, and the 10 that we looked into further from that November 16th meeting were the graphical cross section along Olive. On the initial submittal, we gave just a very simple line diagram, but it was requested that we provide something that matched more specifically to chapter 428 for this development and how that would work and be in conformance with that standard. There was a lot of discussion about the striped refuge area at the building entry. I think the commission had several different comments. I don't think everybody was on the exact same page, but some of you were concerned with the amount of actual physical striping, and others wanted to see a reduction in asphalt and introduce some additional pavement type materials. So we'll talk through that. The other was regarding the RTUs, or the rooftop units on top of the building, and how they're placed horizontally and vertically. And to come back with to present to you a sightline study and show you how we plan to shield those from public view along the right of ways. Number 4 was to turn our black and white architectural elevations into colored renderings, so you can see the articulation of the colors and materials on all 4 sides, which we've presented. That those are in your packet, but we also have those here to show. There was some question about the glass for the windows, especially facing Olive and the spandrel glass. So we'll get into and show you a view of that, discuss that, and then show you some actual photos of buildings that have those. The downspout, there was some discussion of that, which is going to collect the roof water from the building, and those are on the north side of the building facing Olive. We do show those on the architectural elevations, and we will describe how those are going to work and how those look. There was some discussion about the parking lot lighting and how it compared with the overall development, which we'll talk about. There was concern about being on Price Road and looking at the dock area from Price, and how is that visual and how is that screened. Also in line with that was the fencing and metal panel detail along that same line of Price. And then to present to you photos of other similar buildings of architecture and masonry that are going to be similar to this building. The first one was the graphical cross section along Olive. Looked into chapter 428 that showed how the street transition and Olive and how that was all going to work. I drew this and then went back and kind of looked at the chapter, and it looks very similar to what was, I think, the vision initially when this was developed. You can see Olive Boulevard on your right. This cross section is looking to the west. So the cars will be coming towards you going easterly. So there's the Olive Boulevard on the right. There's a transitional strip of different pavement materials. There's decorative lights that are along that area as well. The pedestrian way sits further off of that, more of a safety situation. So they're walking further from the street. Then there's the streetscape edge, or the transitional area from the property line up to any development along Olive Corridor. And we have that strip of the shrubbery on the lower level to break up the monotony of the wall. We have a 3-foot high wall, and then an additional transitional area on top with additional shrubbery and a complete hedge line across the entire top of that wall. So that will screen from Olive, because Olive sits lower. It will screen that parking lot from Olive very well.
Question real quick.
Yes, and we can
And-
definitely come back to any of these as you see fit.
You talked about the fencing and the some sort of fencing element that was gonna go around the property, or maybe I'm thinking of something different.
I think you're referring to on price, where
Okay.
we're going to implement a fencing and metal panel detail that is being used by Greg on other parts of the development or under consideration to be used on other parts of the development. And we were going to match what was approved through their conversations with staff on and mimic that on this side of the development as well. What I had presented at the first meeting was that because this area of the parking lot is not a pedestrian way and the wall is only 3 foot high and we're lining it with a shrubbery, I don't think to add a railing on top of that wall has any visual interest, and I don't think it's needed from a safety standpoint at all. So we were not proposing that.
So you would do it on more the west face?
It's the railing and the metal feature, the panel is on the west side of the property.
Yeah.
It's not being put in there to create a safety type condition. It's more to create a physical, non-vegetated delineation between right-of-way corridor and the commercial development is what it's there for, to more outline that development with something more hard instead of softscape.
Okay.
And we can show you kind of how that's going to look.
Good.
And Brandon, if we can go back a second on that, we had some discussions internally within staff about that. And by code, it doesn't look like anything would be required because these are traveling lanes as opposed to if somebody was walking, if there was a sidewalk on the top end, you would be required to have a guardrail in there, but these are not like a sidewalk area, so therefore there's not a railing there, and you can do the vegetation as a means to create that perimeter in there. My assumption would be that the curb here would be sufficient to guide traffic and not have someone go over. Like there's not going to come back, and there's not going to be like a highway guardrail along this edge in any sort.
No, there
That
will
would be
not.
required by code.
It'd be a
correct?
6-inch concrete curb, and then you'll have the hedge vegetation all the
And
way
that's
down.
pretty standard. There's nothing in that's outside of. And then the other thing, as you get to the first parking stall, that would be on the north side of the building. At that point, you know, that occupant would be coming out of that passenger door. There probably will be some type of like a fence, you know, a fence, because that is a path, you know, that is a passable path, but it would only be the length of the stall. Correct.
Well, we weren't proposing that because the wall actually starts getting smaller at the
And
level,
you
but
start dropping. Okay.
if that's something we want to look through.
I just want,
through
just so that
permitting,
the
we can.
commission was aware. I don't think it would change anything here significantly. And I think this illustration reflects pretty much what is in chapter 428.
You're talking about the first stall that's next to the building?
Yes.
right?
Mhm.
Yeah, okay.
But if that elevation starts to drop, and then that need
Correct.
would be.
And that's where the sidewalk from the front of the building starts to wrap around the corner and then and go down for ADA accessibility out to the right of way.
Yeah.
Okay, the second, it's a pretty simple black and white line diagram. I didn't feel like it needed much more than that based on what we were proposing, but if you recall, when we presented this initially, you can see the front of the building, the double doors that face to the east. And then we talked about that hatching right up against the building, which is concrete, and that's covered with a canopy, partially covered with a canopy. The area just to the outside of that was all heavily striped and asphalt. And we had conversations about possibly moving the bollards out, putting in landscape. I talk about all different types of things. And when I took all the comments together, and then also what we have to adhere to for Aldi corporate and how they're going to look at this from an insurance and safety standpoint, we basically took the concrete around the building and kept that typical to what we would typically do. And then instead of having asphalt in that area, we're proposing that to be also concrete, but joint it and score it in a different pattern. So it's gonna feel and look different than what's under the building. And then just minimize the striping to a 4-foot wide striped area, which would be yellow striping. That's an Aldi requirement. So I think what we've done is we've reduced the asphalt, we've changed the materials. I think with creative jointing and detailing on the jointing and saw cuts, et cetera, that could look nice. And then just minimize the striping with the no parking. We felt that was addressing the different concerns, and open up for additional comment on that and discussion if you have anything. Or
I think it looks great. I'm curious about it.
I think it looks good too. So this is just gonna be plain concrete, and then you're literally just gonna saw cut lines in there. and then caulk them, is that? is
Well,
that what I'm
it'd be
hearing?
jointed, with either with trowels or at expansion, we'd have saw cuts and sealed, correct, with limestone color sealant. Um, so, but we would look to score it and joint it differently than what's under the building. So it just has different transitional feel out to the asphalt.
Have you guys done this before?
We have not. No.
What are you
Yep.
thinking, Tim?
I'm just a little concerned of how that's actually gonna look afterwards of, you guys have seen saw cut in your basement or anything like that. Now it's gonna be those lines basically every 4 feet maybe or so, or a few
4 to 5 feet
Yeah,
for, yeah,
4 or
for-
5 feet.
Do you have a better suggestion?
What about a colored concrete there?
we're still gonna have the joints.
Yeah, you'd still have the joints, but it would look, I don't know. I think it would, or stamp concrete or something like that, but
The problem with the stamp, you have to deal with carts, and it
Mhm.
becomes a little
yeah, that
rumbly.
makes sense.
I think this is like any plaza that you would, a concrete plaza that you'd have at your park or under a gazebo or it's just a concrete kind of patio jointing. You have to joint concrete, else it'll crack. So,
That's just a lot of joints. I mean, a lot of joints. And so the saw cut's made to crack where those joints are. Basically, that's the theory in it. So those things will be, at the end, they'll be attached at the bottom, but they could crack off in there. But I
well,
would
How about
honestly,
less?
I'd be okay with
How
it.
about less joints?
well, there's a standard to joint spacing based on thickness of concrete.
Mhm.
And I would say that if any of this concrete ever does do anything like that, it's being removed and replaced immediately. The
Sure.
liability is too big.
Oh, absolutely.
So Aldi's not in the business to have anything that's gonna not function properly. If there's a lip on this, it's saw cut and torn out and rebuilt. But the joining pattern can change. The spacing is a function of the thickness of the concrete. I'm happy to work with staff on a jointing pattern.
I'm okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
I'm good with it.
Good. Go ahead.
My question is just, so there will be, vehicle traffic on this, or I know for loading and unloading, is that correct? Or
It's not,
no vehicle
as
traffic?
Vern mentioned at the first meeting, it's not designed for that. But you will get an occasional person that will drop off someone.
Okay.
So the thickness would accommodate if
Okay.
that needed to happen, but the signs on there, no parking, it's not meant for that. It's not encouraged. It's not desired. It's an area of pedestrian circulation with carts. They do not want somebody to park there. Inevitably, it happens occasionally, but it's not something that's there all the time.
Okay, so it would be designed to accommodate the, you know,
Weight of the vehicle?
right.
Correct.
Sorry.
Yeah,
Okay.
it'll either
Yeah,
be,
no,
we have to talk to the geotechnical engineer, but it'll either be 5 or 6 inches of concrete on 4 inches of rock. So it could satisfy it could handle an ambulance, for example, pulling up on it and things of that nature.
Okay.
The next item that we talked about was the sightline study for the rooftop units. What is demonstrated here is the elevations of the building on all 4 sides. And the rooftop units are shaded in yellow. And actually Kyle prepared this drawing, and she can talk through it as well, but we basically took a 6-foot high eye line and looking at the different angles, and you can see the units are centered mostly on the building. And from each angle, you're basically seeing the corner of the building or the roof before you see the actual rooftop units behind. As Carlos mentioned earlier, this is not a 13 or 12,000 square foot Walgreens or CVS. This is a 20,000 square foot building. So it's a little bigger than what you would see across the street. So there is more horizontal distance. So if you have these units more centered in the middle of the building and you're looking up at that height, you basically would look up and see over those and not see those. So we wanted to show this to you and demonstrate that. We're not proposing additional screenings on the roof to screen them because they're really screened already just from the line of sight.
Can you clarify, I guess, what view we're looking at these from? I'll make sure I'm understanding, like the third one down, Is that from the south to the north?
The third one down would be the south to the north, correct?
Okay, and the top one is,
This top would be north to south.
okay.
The elevation view, but you're looking left and right. Your eye, your sight
No,
line
yeah.
is the red line, but the top one, the elevation of the building on the top one is from north to south, but that sight line would be depicted on one of
That's where
the
it gets
one-
confusing.
I guess
the shorter lines.
another way to think about it, make sure people on the council agree with me, is on the right-hand side of the top one, that's price. Is that fair?
Yes, correct.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Good clarification.
Well, I'm thinking to your comment about not facing the front, and it's similar to like the Firestone where it looks like a front, but we're not entering the front. you know,
Right.
so, Yep.
Any additional comments, questions, or concerns?
I'm just trying to walk through it myself, just real quick.
Sure.
Like if I was standing on the south side of the building, looking up, I would be. Which section?
The bottom one.
Bottom one. Okay, I see it. I see it. Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
exactly. Yeah, yeah,
I'm with you.
perfect. Perfect.
You have to look for this view to see it, you gotta turn. to this
Exactly,
one.
exactly.
Yeah, yeah, you gotta think backwards.
Wasn't trying to be tricky, it was just, you have to kind of depict it 2 dimensions, so.
Thought
Yeah.
thought I was good at drawings, but. Any other questions or comments related
Yeah,
to this?
oh,
Go ahead, Carol.
So I'm sure you heard me ask the question before as to why the back of this building's facing Olive. So I know you're in the middle of your scripted talks you wanted to give to us, but I do want to point out that we would like you to respond to that.
Well, we're developing one lot of this overall development, and this was already approved as a master plan with this configuration, so we're one development coming in complying with the master plan that's already been approved, so we've already been given our instructions by the city of how this is to be set.
Okay. Okay, so you didn't give any thought to turning around and facing Olive?
It wouldn't meet the intent of the master plan that was approved.
Okay. I don't remember that we,
I think
we
at that
turned
point in
it.
time, we didn't have a grocery store there, but correct me.
Well,
if
there
I'm
was an
wrong.
amended master plan that showed the grocery store.
Yeah, okay.
Excuse me.
It's hard to
Part of your
remember
packet
every-
information includes the amended master plan.
And I will say also, when you're dealing with a corner development with also a street on the other 2 sides, so you have 4 sides, and you're trying to face loading away from Olive, it becomes tricky with loading, front door, parking, pedestrian away, safety. It's tough to get that to lay out. So I think how, in my opinion, the way the city approved the master plan is correct. You've got Olive, a state highway facing into this overall development. I think the building further to the east is doing the same thing, Carlos, if I'm not mistaken. So they're pushed up to create that corridor, as Carlos indicated, and then more centered in. If this was a project where you had Olive being maybe a one way each way with a center median and angled parking along the roadway along Olive, something like that with much lower volume, lower speeds, things like that. Totally, you could face it out front. You could have something happen a little differently, but being a 6-lane state highway with a lot of traffic going to 170, et cetera, I think the city got it right on how they positioned this master plan.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's two slides here in a row, and this is what was indicated earlier where we colored all 4 elevations. The original submittal was in black and white. This elevation shows the top one is the south elevation. So you're inside the development looking north. And I'm going to go through the orientation, then we go through and talk about them specifically. The bottom one is the front elevation, which is basically facing east. So this is where you'd be actually in our parking lot looking west. The top one is these 2 are probably a little more point of interest to the commission. The top one is the elevation that faces Olive. The color definitely emphasizes the articulation in the materials, the roof height, the signage, the awning at the number 2 tower, as well as the downspouts that are shown on here that were hard to see on the black and white. Now the downspouts are aluminum. They're an object that's going to be onto the building. They will be piped underground when it hits the ground. So that stormwater will be collected, piped underground, and taken to the stormwater BMPs that are that's built under the parking lot currently. And then the southern elevation that you see here would be the west elevation. I'm sorry, yeah, the west elevation. So it'd be looking east from Price. And what you see here is the spandrel glass at the loading area. You see the shadow in the center of that building because that is the bump out for the loading area. So it lends a shadow on the wall that sits behind it. And then you see the screen that's along the Price Road there. Kaio, anything to add on this in regards to the materials, the downspout, etc.?
Oh, no, I think you did a great job. I just like to mention that based on the meeting from last time, we added in the rooftop units in a very slight gray. You can sort of make out the rectangles popping on top, but they're all the same shapes and sizes with the sightline study that Brandon had shown 2 slides ago.
So the top elevation that you see here, again, this will be facing olive. So you can see the transitional colors and materials and spandrel glass along that elevation. And then the bottom one again is looking from Price in.
Have you ever thought of using any different materials on that west side?
Kaio?
Not necessarily, because Aldi has a brand look that we want to repeat, and you will see later when Varn shows the photos from other more prototypical stores how much we're dressing up for this specific site, because we understand everybody's concerned, especially the northern face facing Olive. We're adding so many points of interest, like spandrel windows and fiber cement panel that are showing brown.
Oh, I get it. It just looks a lot of gray. I know it's the back end of the store. I get it, but
What we could do is we could get through the
Mhm.
rest and then have Vern go through other stores, actual photos.
great.
Yeah.
Be
And it may
great.
give you a more real life visualization, then maybe come back to that.
That'd be great.
After you get
That'd be
another
great.
perspective on it. Okay,
'Cause
thank you.
Yeah, I'd also like to look at that
Can
loading
we go
dock
back to
area.
that previous one? Sorry. The fencing, is that just for the loading dock, or is that an example, or is that supposed to be
Well,
Panel
is
wall
that
system.
like,
Kyle, on that south
think
elevation,
the
was
look
that the
back.
imposed metal panel or is that just the railing on top of the dock?
No, that's just guardrail for safety, so that
For
people
the
don't
loading
fall
dock?
into the truck
that's
well.
what I
So
just wanted to
that is,
clarify.
yeah, that is
Okay.
not the same as the metal panel that Brandon
Okay.
was talking about.
Yeah, it was hard to tell from here if she left that in for this, but on top of on top of the wall, because that's a recessed dock. Yeah, and so there's a railing on top of that, but then we're doing a lot of in front of that you wouldn't really see that. So this is not to present, this is a building that was kind of under construction, so you can see they haven't cleaned the brick or anything off yet, but this is just to show an example of the spandrel glass. I think you're gonna see it better when, is it shown on some of the other photos? You're gonna see it better on the photographs, which we had this in the slide, then we got some other drawings. So let me show you one that's a little more articulate of what we're actually proposing. Now the lighting, so the lighting on the left is the heads that would be used, that's proposed for the Aldi parking lot. The ones on the right are for a lot of the other areas in the development. They're complementary of each other. They're not the same head fixture, but they're both a darker color, both LED. The lumens are similar. I think when the overall development is done, you're not going to see yellow and white. And I think that was some of the concern, that you see a lot of different type of things going on. These are very close in nature, where you're going to see, I think, a consistency across the entire development when it's all constructed. But really the heads on the other fixture don't really work well with the Aldi supplier and how that chain works with them. So we did select a slightly different head that seemed to complement it better than just doing more of the light on the right. I think in a lot of developments with different users, you're going to see several different light fixtures. I think that's fine. I think they should be similar color, and like we talked earlier, lumens and color of light. You don't want some yellow, some white, but these would all be LED white light.
Do you know the color that it's gonna be? What the colors being? 4,000.
Yeah.
And that's what you're gonna use?
Yeah, Kai, are we at 3,500?
I think so.
Yeah, I believe it's 30. So it's right there in the same palette of light. And it's not just the light, it's how they're spaced, and it's the illumination, things like that. It's just not all that one component attribute.
Chairman, if we can go, Mr. Brandon, if you don't mind going back to the previous one, just to note, because we did comment
The
at
light?
the last meeting, yes, on the lighting. Per the adopted ordinance for the PDD and developers agreement, there is a section that authorizes the developer to put 24-foot light poles with a 3-foot base, allowing for a maximum height of 27 feet. I had brought that up at our last meeting because under chapter 428, it restricts it to about 16 feet, which we've had difficulty trying to get compliance with. Our building here, I believe goes over 18 feet. But when the developers agreement and PDD was being put together, a specific request was submitted and was authorized by the city to permit the taller poles, I believe up to 27 total. Yeah, in there. The other thing I'll note just to make clear, we are trying to, I believe, control the brightness of the light, and I think that is not necessarily the lumens, but we're trying to stay under that 4,000 threshold, and it sounds like that's what you're looking at in there, and we're trying to be as close to that 3,000 as possible, based on some comments and resident input we've had in the past. So, okay.
Great. Thanks for the clarification, Carlos.
Thank you. This is the view from Price looking in. This was a tough kind of rendering to prepare. What you see here is on the far left side, we have this olive crossing wall that we presented at the last meeting. That is going to be that arced wall at that corner that says olive crossing on it. That's going to be embraced by a lot of lower level landscaping around it. And some of those colors didn't come out great, but it is lined with a lot of landscaping. And you have a detailed landscape plan in your packet that shows everything that's being proposed. In addition to that, as you work from the left to the right, it's a mixture of evergreen type shrubs and bushes, shrubbery and bushes and trees along that corridor. I tried to show these graphically to about a year or two after they're planted. So to scale, like the tallest evergreen there is, I believe I had is like 8.5 feet, something like that. They're probably going to be planted somewhere around 6 to 7 feet. So these will fill out and they will grow taller over time. And then incorporated with that is that additional kind of metal panel kind of screen behind it. Some of the vegetation's behind, some's in front. And we showed a truck to scale in that dock area. Now, I presented at the last meeting that this store will probably get 1 delivery a day. It could get 2, but typically probably just 1. Most stores just get 1 a day. They go from the distribution to here, they unload, they go back, and the next day they do the same thing. So this truck doesn't sit here all day long. It's a delivery. They unload and then it's back because it's got to go back, get loaded, and go to another store. So there will be situations and times where this is here for an hour or two till it gets unloaded. So we tried to graphically show this a little better with the colored building elevation, the olive crossing wall, this metal panel screen fence that's, I think, yet to be fully approved. I think maybe Carlos has seen it, but I don't think it's been formally vetted out yet, but we're planning on mimicking what Greg does on the other part of whatever gets approved on the other side. Continue with that, and then mixing in some of the vegetation to show how that can all work together.
What's on the right-hand side, the gray, like the break?
Where's that? I'm sorry.
That's the, oh, to scale, it didn't, because
I didn't hear the question. I'm
I
sorry.
was asking what's the, I mean, up at top would be the right-hand side of the apartment building, but that felt very close. I didn't think it was that.
Oh, off the picture there. Kyle, do you know what that is on the right side?
On the right side, the angle wall, I think that's depicting a different building.
The
I'm
apartment.
I'm not convinced if that's at the right location or the height.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
think
to
that's-
scale, it looks a little close.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, there's a
Just like, I don't think. so.
yeah, there's a half bay parking lot on the south side of the building and the street, and then more space in the building. So I think
All
that
right,
is
just
probably.
make sure I wasn't crazy that,
No.
that the department was that close.
No, I was wondering about that one too.
Yeah, no, up high, yeah, no, that I'm with, I just. Sure, big shot, we'll go with big shot.
Any comments or questions, concerns?
It's a utility, right? Any questions on this particular item?
Again, this is the detail that Greg provided. And I think this is something that's was presented to staff to review. And it's a fencing material. I believe it's a black anodized. And then at intervals of, I believe it's 8 feet or so, there was going to be a galvanized steel kind of plate, kind of architectural kind of plate. And that would be offset as the top view would be looking down on it and the bottom one is looking at an elevation view. So something that's got horizontal offsets to it, some interest in material, some open, some closed, and just again, try to create a physical, non-vegetated delineation between, in our situation, price, right away, and the commercial development. And again, Aldi is not too particular on what this really is. It's something that I think Greg and the city are kind of working through, and we're going to kind of piggyback on. So we don't have really much more to say about that. It was asked for us to consider putting that along the price, and we agreed to do that. We just don't know how that's going to be fully developed yet as far as the final details.
Right, and I think it makes sense to make sure it kind of blends in or matches everything else. Yeah, that'd be great. Remember, state your name and address.
Greg Yow at 6 Other Hill Lane. So the intent here with these metal panels is and it's hard because I didn't bring it with me, but if you look at our 3D models where we have the fountain over at lot 3, and we have that raised weathered metal wall above the fountain, it's to mimic that material in front of lot 3 along Olive, and then on the west side of the Aldi building. So we have this sort of thematic tone of architecture and metals that work their way through the development. So you don't just see it in one place. It's, oh, it's here and it's here and it's here. And we intentionally chose to use a material we already picked, this weathered, I think it's weathered stainless. I don't know exactly whatever the architects told me it was. Whatever we're showing on the fountain, that's what we're going to mimic here. So that, again, there's a common language to what's going on. I just want to clear that up.
Thanks.
Carlos, have we approved that fence?
Yes, that's the concept design that we're working with.
But we haven't
Yeah.
approved.
We
that
haven't
fence.
seen it.
We
In
haven't seen it.
conceptual, the fence itself wouldn't come to the commission.
Okay.
You've seen it in the conceptual drawings. This is now the finalized print in there.
So if we approve this, are we approving this for the whole development?
The whole development, they illustrated conceptually what they were proposing in there, but that final detail doesn't come back to the commission. It was part of the
I think what Tim's wondering is if we approve what Aldi wants to
Mhm.
do, we're officially then, are we officially?
You're kind of,
approving?
yes, you're kind of consenting to that design. But it wasn't something that we were going to bring back to the commission for its approval.
Um, Greg, I'm sorry, I'm not sure. Is this just aluminum fencing, like Ameristar fencing that's in between here?
So the concept, so staff asked us on lot 3 to do something more than just landscaping on the north side of lot 3. And so Carlos and I talked back and forth and I engaged the architects and I said, how do we do something? And we have limited space that's not public space, that's not in the right of way. And so what we came up with was, instead of just using landscaping, let's take materials from another spot within the project. Again, the Ameristar type fencing that's around the basin and along the fountain. Let's pull sections of that out and have those things married in multiple places. So yes.
And
But it'll probably be lower than a standard height 48. I think we're thinking 36, because again, it's more decorative and not functional.
Mhm.
So we want it to look intentional, but not like, why do they have a fence there that doesn't block anything? So we want it to look like an intentional visual thing, not an actual fence.
Okay. And so my concern is just the Ameristar fence. I'm not sure if you guys know what we're talking about, but it's aluminum fence that you'd see at your house and everything.
Around pools.
Yeah, around pools and stuff like that. That would be my,
Which we're using that all over lot 3, again, to protect the basin for safety. So we thought, why not have that in a slightly different height configuration throughout the project and tie it all together versus introducing another material.
and I think the panels are correct. There's no question about that. That was my only take on it is, do we want this to be wrought iron or something like that instead of a Ameristar fence?
Now, is
Look
it,
to
you
everybody
know,
else to
with,
see
with
what they
that
think
type of
about that.
fencing, you know, is there differences between what you see like residential grade versus commercial grade? I've seen with fencing around pools, I've seen some that's really cheap. I've seen some that's pretty nice and wasn't wrought iron. So I think there's different grades.
Most of the ones are the same, pretty much the same grade that you would use, whether it's a Panera or wherever you're looking at, it's gonna be pretty much the same Ameristar fence. There's that one level of that
Okay,
fence.
with
Yeah,
that brand.
Yeah, yeah, with that grade.
You
So,
like
I-
it?
And remember, it'll be broken up with landscaping as well. So
Mhm.
and it's meant, it's not the entire run of Price Road. It's to break up the section north of the main entry of Olive Crossing
Mhm.
up until we get a little farther north of the dock. So the hedges are going to grow in, the plants are going to grow in. And we,
How far off the sidewalk will it be?
Oh, boy. I would get, if I was to guess, I'd say 12 to 15 feet.
So it's pretty far back too.
I just want to make sure everybody knows what we're approving more than anything else.
Yeah, I don't know that I understand totally what the type of fencing it is. But I do like the idea of that it's consistent throughout the development, that ties it in.
I agree with that, and I agree that they did a good job with the paneling, so it's not one straight run, just as
Mhm.
far as you can see. I definitely agree with the concept and everything. That was my only thing that I wanted to bring up and make sure everybody understood what we're doing here.
If I could ask a question of the experts here and review, mine is the question of the wear and tear of the material of this fencing, how long will it last? If it begins to rust or whatever, who is responsible for replacing that? If there is just wear and tear, aging, whatever, destruction.
It will last forever as long as somebody doesn't hit it. If it hits it, it will bend and it will break. No
Okay,
question
Okay,
about that.
okay.
But it'll last, you're not gonna have rust or anything like that you would have with wrought iron. That's a whole different problem.
Okay.
And I'd also add that it's not along, at least immediately adjacent to a pedestrian way. You'd have to walk across lawn, bushes, et cetera, because it will be a mix of this panel and landscaping and softscape around it as well.
If you look at your packet, the approval plan, L1 would illustrate where the placement of that fence is on the left-hand side. I could bring it up on the screen, but I think you'll be able to see it on paper. And it shows it's an extension of the monument sign along Price and Olive. We can go to L1.
Yeah, I'm on that. Assume it's. That's a one. Carlos, if you can bring it on screen, I think that might be helpful.
I think it was a site. Vernon, I'm gonna interrupt.
No problem.
Okay. Out of order here. Clean version. Bear with me 1 second. That one's, there's a lot of traffic on that one. But I have a better, here we go. So you can see the curvature of the monument sign, and then you see the extension of that fencing. The sidewalk is actually right over here.
Okay.
So that's why he was saying that there's like about 12-foot distance. The grades start to fall down here. There's a small detention area. So he does have, if I go back to the landscape plan. Bear with me 1 second.
You can see the
It,
post.
it gets a little lost in there, but you could see
Yeah.
how it runs through. And you have vegetation on both sides.
Mhm.
Okay.
Good. Perfect.
Yeah. Thank you, Carlos.
Thank you.
It's actually the same fence we use on the west side that's built on the west side of the apartment building where our dog parks are.
Mhm.
So we're sort of just continuing it north. So it's sort of already all over the place on the project.
So this is the next part where we have actual photos of built buildings. So Vern's gonna walk through these and then we can even bring in the colored renderings back in and have a discussion.
Good.
Okay, I'm gonna go back. First of all, I painted a story. It's great seeing everybody tonight. Thank you very much for allowing me to be up here. I was at the coffee shop looking at Olive Crossing probably about 9 months ago with our CEO, saying this is gonna be one of the premier developments in the St. Louis area and also for the city of Olivet. And that was my pitch to her so that we can get this development getting to where we're at right now. And I believe very much in where we're at. Also taking into Councilmember Laura, you were talking about last time about the north-south of Olivet, you know, and a few other things as far as Tim was talking about the concrete. What you're gonna see now is stuff that we don't do in our prototype, that we're gonna be doing in the city of Olivet for our Aldi store. So what I wanna do is start with looking at the store, kind of put this in your memory. You can see, right now, the pictures I took is from our Perryville, Missouri store. It just opened up, grand opening was today. This is our prototype store. What you're looking at right now is you're gonna see a lot of different revisions just for Olivet. You're gonna see the secondary tower. If you look at the lower right one, the bottom to the right, we don't have that in any other store in our division. If we go to the long wall on top, you're gonna see where usually that's just all brick. You can see where we got the spandrel grass, we put the Nietzsche there. We've got a lot of different architectural features because we knew that this was gonna be an awesome store where it's at, and we wanted to show off what Aldi is with every one of those customers coming by on Olive Boulevard. Also in the dock area, normally that whole area there is also just brick, where we've got the spandrel glass and then also our sign there. So I want to point those out before I show you our prototype store in Perryville. So you can see this is the front of our store. Pretty much, well, the layout is going to be almost exact if you look straight on where the door, when you're facing our store looking west, is exactly how it's going to be set up. Here's another side of the store looking west. And then that would be the store looking north in the parking lot. And then there's the truck dock area here. So you can see where the dock is recessed. You can see our dumpsters setting a lot lower. And the articulation that we showed in that picture, you can kind of see why it's setting down so low for that. Now, this is the wall that would be sitting on Olive. Again, you can see there's spandrel glass right there in our office, but you can see all the different articulation that we've done off of our prototype here for that. And also, this is a good little thing where you could see too live where our stormwater comes off the scuppers and goes into the ground, into our stormwater system. It doesn't go off on the surface. So it's handled, it's great, no erosion. We don't have any issues with that. Some of the questions I had last time too is about the amount of sunlight that comes into our stores, natural sunlight. So you're looking at the front, there's our stacking table. You can see how light and bright it is. I took quite a few pictures. This is going down our first aisle. So one thing that's really going to be, I think is really cool that we do is that the sign up in the upper left there, that's going to be welcome to your Olivet Aldi. We individualize that for every one of our stores. So when I give all of you a tour, you're going to be able to see that on our grand opening. You can see a produce. When you walk in, you've got produce right there. And then this is looking down all of our different aisles. There's our Aldi finds there. Or a lot of our diehards call the aisle of shame, if you've ever been there before, because we got our what it is, it's Aldi finds. Usually it's there for like 2 weeks. So what you want to do is get in there when we do have it before it's gone. And it's always rotating. So you can see there's our third aisle, our fourth aisle. So you can see our cooler is in the back wall. Our freezer is right there along the wall there. And then we have our spot merchandisers. And again, this is in the front too. You can see a lot of light gets into our store. We really kind of prize that. Looking at another angle there. And then there's our entryway right there too. So you can just see how light and bright, easy access, entry, and all of that. So that was one thing that the commissioner had brought up, and I just want to go over all the different pictures of the interior and exterior, give an example of what it looks like. Our stores are really sharp. And we're very proud of that. But then also I wanted to show you, here's a prototype, and this is what Ollie's done for what we're going to be doing all of that. And we haven't done it in any other store in our division. So we're very proud of it. And this is what we're submitting to you very proudly. Any questions? I could talk all night, but
No, I think you guys did a very good job presenting everything. The one thing that I was curious about, the darker material. Do you have that sample board by
Yeah,
chance?
I do.
I would love to
Of
just
our
take a
brick?
look at. What's that? Yeah, perfect. Can I hold it?
Sure.
All right.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's what we call a spec brick.
I have to say, I like every elevation. My only concern is where that loading dock is. And I know there's no other place for it.
Oh, for the loading dock, yes.
For the loading dock.
Correct, yeah,
you know.
we have to have it.
Exactly. Exactly.
Right.
And then I was kind of looking at the entrance from Price going in, and I'm not, I'm not sure how much it will be seen from that entrance as you pull it.
Right.
As much, especially because everything sits lower.
Right.
And
you're looking at another 5 or 10 years from now, all that vegetation is going to be growing out. And it's really, a lot of it's all going to be hidden.
Yeah. Couple grocery stores, not Aldi, but where a loading dock is, tends to accumulate debris, that doesn't get cleaned up or picked up. Being that this is kind of right at the big main entrance and there's a lot of grassy area where debris can accumulate or things like that. What is your policy in terms of cleaning that sort of stuff up, things like that?
Our store personnel and store operations teams have teams that go out and keep that up to date and clean. I mean, nobody wants to shop at a dirty grocery store. So there's a peer pressure per se
Yeah.
to keep that clean.
Right.
I mean, it's like the interior of our store. We want to keep that clean. We want our floors look nice. Nobody's gonna shop at our store if it's dirty, or if it's not organized, or it's not stocked properly. So it's really something for us, we take pride in. Look, and I challenge, look at our other stores too. I mean, we wanna keep them up to date and clean. Because if not, it's an image problem.
It's a very nice store. I mean, I have to say, any question, any further discussion with the petitioner right now?
I really think the commission, if you go back to slide 10.
Mhm.
In there, I think it's slide, or it was outline a slide, and it goes back to that price elevation there at that corner. And there. Yeah,
Right there.
that one right there, that corner, and that, it's not necessarily the dock area that's recessed backwards in there, but it's that portion that protrudes outward towards the street. It is a very important corner, and I just want to make sure the commission is comfortable with that selection of materials in there.
My only thought, with that, and that's why I was talking to you about different materials, but the tan material, what do you guys call that?
Oh, Nichiha,
Say that again?
Nichiha.
That material.
If
that
you
one-
want to figure that one out too.
If you use that on that, the part that is protruding, just to, kind of make that back end look as good as the other ones.
So, like eliminate the windows, the spandrel windows?
No, no. So you basically, I'll stand up.
Where those brown or not brown.
Right, I think he wants to mimic the Nichiha where those windows are in the same
Take
place.
this, and then, have it on this face. So go to the next slide.
No,
Oh, right there at the bottom.
Yeah.
Thank you, thank you. Take that material. Right here.
I think if you do that, then you're kind of seeing the end of it. When you're looking at it from the corner, you'll see two different materials coming together at that corner.
Yeah.
Oh,
True.
Yeah.
But I mean, there might be another opportunity to fit that Nichiha in there somewhere.
Could you wrap it around, like 2 feet around the corner? Kind of like you have. This part, right?
Just put like a 2-foot width section.
Something. I'm not sure what the width would be,
Oh,
whatever
right at the
architecturally.
end there.
So like right. at
Right
the
there,
end.
like
Oh,
after the
got
windows,
it.
2-3 feet on each.
like after the windows there, and then wrap it
Yeah.
around to where the
Yeah.
loading dock is.
Yeah,
just so you,
and I'm not an architect.
it's
I'm
just so
an
it gives
engineer,
it a
so-
corner.
Right,
It just helps, it just adds another material of interest in there.
yeah. And then we would just push the sign down a little bit and then keep the windows there?
Keep
Just
the
to make
windows
that
there.
equidistant?
And again, the windows there are not,
See-through, no, right,
so
correct.
they're flexible, I would assume.
Right, right.
In that process, and again, it is a very dominant corner, and I understand it is a
Mhm.
4-sided building and has to have a back,
Right.
in there. Unfortunately, it's Price Road that is the back, and that is the layout that was illustrated in the master plan. But it's this protrusion here, you got, over 16,000 vehicles going eastward every day. Is the average, and that's what they're going to see on as their exit from our community. And where I kind of struggle with is it's a concrete masonry veneer, so it's not a CMU block.
Right,
Correct.
yeah.
But been trying to get more comfortable with what is that material in there, especially like how it reinforces our chapter 428, because there are primary materials that we authorize and permit
Mhm.
In there, and I would assume the CMB is called out through there, but it looks very unprofessional way to say it, but it looks very blocky. It looks like a concrete block. And I don't think that that's what the expression is.
Right.
And it could be because of the renderings, you have to put the lines in the layout in there. And that's where I want the commission to feel comfortable that that's not, in there, a veneer to me is something that's gonna be placed on something that's gonna have the load bearing in there, so it's an accent of some sort.
Do you have a picture of that material in some of
Yeah,
your other slides?
It's right here.
No, I mean, on the building.
Yes. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, there it is right there. That's probably
It
the
looks
biggest.
like a brick to me. I mean, which I think doesn't look, it looks good.
Yeah,
I like the color variation within it, gives it more depth.
Was there another picture of this? It's kind of dark in the shadow there.
right there. That's a bit
Okay.
closer.
That looks more cinder block like.
Yeah, it's almost like we really want to see the Nichiha all around that corner and the bump out and then return.
On price.
Yeah.
How far would you like to see that? I'm just trying to.
Yeah, I mean, maybe just like,
Just like a few
not-
feet
not-
on each side, so that corner be encapsulated?
maybe it doesn't have to be the corner, maybe just another, because there's a big, long stretch of.
What about if they put one of those elements, the same element
Yeah,
that's going
exactly,
around
yeah.
those windows, you put that same element down on those windows? And you get that Nichiha on that side.
Oh,
Right.
To the right of the
Yeah.
sign.
Is that what you guys are talking about?
That, and then maybe one more next to the logo.
right here, going across the thing. Make that the same elevation as what's on Olive, basically.
Break it up a little bit.
Yeah, I'd go for that.
does that sound good? For everybody?
I think that would be good, but then you also do have this big, long wall. I know it's the loading dock, but it's just a straight wall.
Wow.
We probably need something.
What's unique about that one, and this one I would advocate on there, is that it is set back.
Right.
It does drop in elevation, then they have the vegetation that is.
Okay,
along-
yeah, on the.
Where this,
Between the loading dock
Correct,
and the
mhm.
wall, I couldn't see what actually goes there.
and I think going back, that this is where, this segment here does protrude towards the street, but here you're going back and then head here is to screen
Right,
it with the vegetation.
Behind that truck that's never gonna be there.
Correct.
You have a long,
At some
Wow.
point, it's gonna be the rear of the building.
yeah,
In there, and it could, I mean. And there, but it's not as prominent as the protrusion towards the corner.
right. Okay,
Yeah.
what goes on this where it's marked out as expansion area, what is gonna be there?
That actually, that's giving grass.
Okay.
So it's kind of like last time when you were
Okay,
talking
like
about
in
the store
photo,
doing,
like in the photo.
doing so well, what we're gonna end up doing is we'd actually end up expanding into that area.
Why don't you show them that back picture of how that grass
Oh,
looks?
good idea.
Yeah, cause that looked, I
Yeah,
didn't know
so
it was gonna be the
so
same. as
actually
that.
then, yeah, looking at it from that standpoint, that's gonna even be standing farther back. So you're gonna see the expansion area there, that grass patch there. So it's not just gonna be the dock width, it's gonna be that grass too. So it's gonna be set back pretty far.
And that's pretty far from the street too.
Correct.
All right.
I think it's a good compromise to put that Nichiha in that corner, which will draw the eyes to that corner, to the sign, to the windows, all those kind of things. And then you have the monument in front and then let that go away in the back with landscaping and everything like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of like that.
Right, so put Nichiha around that window to match. Let me get this right one of these times. There, to match what we've got on that wall.
Yes.
Yeah,
Am I good with that?
Yes.
Yeah,
yeah, I
correct.
think that.
We can do that.
Good.
Now, how do we,
Be a
you'd
motion.
approve it with that condition?
I think you need to talk to the
Perfect.
public.
Yes, yeah.
Well, I don't know, are we even ready for that? I had another comment.
Oh, you have another
Oh,
comment?
sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so the lines of sight. Can we go back to that? Elevation, yeah, that, so. From the top elevation here, that's along Olive. The eye elevation there is from across the street at the corner. Right, you can't see the rooftop unit there, but people, when you're driving down Olive or you're coming from this direction, you're up way higher because it slopes down. So the further you go away, the higher up you are. And you might actually see. that
Doesn't it
rooftop
sit up
unit.
higher than the road? The building?
Right, but I don't, that's what I don't know. I don't know if how far away you need to be before you would be able to see that. Cause it's like if you extend. You're looking at that section there, the further away you go, the higher you're getting. Cause it slopes down.
But I think if you look at the second one down on the left-hand side, that's Olive. So I think the theory is on Olive, if you're driving east, you're not seeing the top.
You'll see the edge of the building.
Which one are you looking at, Brian?
So this one here, if I'm correct, this is Olive Boulevard looking. So if you're on Olive driving, looking that way, you're not seeing.
No, that would be if you're standing across from if you're on Olive. I'm talking about like.
Are you talking driving east, going towards the
Yeah.
highway?
That's what I was,
Right,
yeah,
right.
I'm agreeing. That's what I was.
Okay.
It's weird because I understand the top one you're looking at, and that's the front of the store, looking from Olive, right?
Right, but really, you're gonna be at the corner, so,
Corner of what?
Price and Olive.
right, but I'm thinking. Not the corner, more towards where,
170 is.
If you're
No, no.
across the street at like the CBD Creighton place and everything, looking over, you're eventually gonna see it.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no
right.
question
Yeah,
about
I
it.
just-
I think
right,
that's where,
yeah,
I think
the
that's.
Chevy,
exactly.
exactly.
You're
You're
going to
the
see
Chevy's
it. You're-
patio.
You're going to see. the
As you
roof.
far away, you're gonna get able to see it, where this is right up to it.
Yeah.
Carlos, I know in our comprehensive plan, it says something about roof screening. What does it say about roof screening in it?
Remind me.
Both within chapter 428 is to try to screen the rooftop mechanical equipment. Understand too, the mechanical equipment that was back in 2006 and when we adopted chapter 428 was I mean, it was pretty large and bulky and had, all these vents and all that. Some of this has changed in there. It's always tough on one-story structures because there's other segments in chapter 428 saying, but don't do these artificially high parapets. So to me, the key thing would be, and I don't know what the right term would is the quality of the rooftop equipment. Is it,
You don't want it rusting.
yeah, exactly. And there are some places that you can see the rooftop equipment, but it looks, it's a smooth finish. It's got a color that mixes in there and it doesn't look out of place as opposed to, I think our post office before they replaced the current ones, I mean, really looked, I mean, they were white and out of character with the roof or top of the building. Those recently got replaced a couple of years ago and they look a little bit more palatable in there. So I'm not trying to dodge the question, but it's difficult.
No, I just wanted to have the conversation because I know we're gonna be seeing it, because especially coming down from Price, it's a
Mhm.
lot higher. So you're gonna be seeing it.
Yeah.
That's-
And
So-
again, it would be artificially raising the parapet. There are other means that can be done closer to the equipment. When we did a logo school, we had them put like a little picket fence around it in there. And those were pretty large units in there, but at the end of the day, because they do need the vent and the air to go around. We had some issues or problems trying to to make it accommodating in there, and they kind of pushed them a little further out, but they're not the full height of the equipment in there. So we've always kind of struggled with them, but they look a lot better than they did, at least for me, 20 years ago.
I guess the question is, there's no way to make them invisible. So, so what options might we have? I mean, they're not like gonna be bright red or something, you know, so they're not gonna be standing out necessarily. And we don't want artificially high parapet walls.
I don't know, do we have a cut sheet of what these units are? Do we know what they look like?
I can pull something out and share my screen, but be assured, please, the units are basically off-white in color, and they're not highly reflective or anything, so you know the bars wouldn't be confused and run into them. And like Carlos said, the surface is usually smooth. You're not going to see what we used to think of rooftop units with a bunch of openings and vents and things sticking out into the air.
And I'd also just, not to, I understand the concern, the comment and the question. But as you get further away from a building, 300-400 feet, a football field away, I don't know that your eyes and your focal points going down a street are really focusing on an RTU based on, any development. If you have certain topography around it, you could screen them, and you could be on a road where you're going to be looking down on a single story building. Just something to consider. The top right one that you mentioned, that 70-foot line, and you can see the angle of the red line. If we extrapolated that 70-foot out to say whatever until that angle gets to the point where you see that yellow, you're probably gonna be hundreds of feet, if not.
Okay, yeah, that's what I'm asking.
Because you see, if you look at the upper right corner of the building where the red line or the sight line hits that, rotate that red line
Down.
counterclockwise, and you're taking out that line to the right until it would hit that yellow. And you can see how that angle would be, where you would be, I'd say,
Well,
hundreds of feet to the right.
right, but the street slopes up, so,
It does. No, exactly.
so you get it closer.
Yeah,
That's what-
but
so
it's still-
it might not be 2 football fields, maybe it's 1.
Right. So if you're driving down a street, it's called Olive, and you've got a full corridor, I don't know that being called 300 feet, a football field away from an Aldi, that an RTU, you see the top 6 inches of it. You don't, never gonna see the base of it because it's on the roof.
Right.
So you're only talking about, even if you could see anything, it's gonna be just, and I don't know that your sight lines or your observational, when you're doing that, you're looking at that.
Which is another need for the Nietzsche panel on that side.
Yeah, I think that would
Bring your
probably,
eyes
yeah.
down to
So
the-
bring the.
For sure.
So, if I could say something, I think this is a big topic in all communities right now, and I think we do need to address it as the commission and write some real rules on it and how we want to address this in the real way. I don't think that this is the project to do it on because we haven't made those rules yet. There are a lot of options to do, but they're very costly options.
Yeah.
To do.
And I
That
don't
would be
necessarily
mine.
think it's warranted for this particular case,
Yeah, I don't
based
think-
on what I'm seeing.
I'm not sure if we should warranty that, because, you gotta play by the rules, and I think that they have played by the rules. So
Yeah.
I don't think it's fair to put that on a big cost on them to do that, but I think in the future, we do need to
To
consider
discuss
this and all
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Any other questions or comments from the commission to the petitioners? Oh, sorry, Laura.
Sorry. I know you mentioned 1 truck a day. What are typical delivery hours? Like, when's it gonna be arriving? Just because with the new apartments and the houses that are nearby?
Actually, if I can address that even beyond that. So part of the developer's agreement and the PDD negotiated between the developer and the council, they set specific hours for deliveries, not necessarily for this side of the development, but because of its proximity to the residential neighborhood, just to the south. So there are set delivery times that the developer has to abide to. And there, that doesn't prohibit you from inquiring from, you know, in there, but the council was cognizant of that and they only wanted deliveries at certain times. And off the top of my head, I don't recall if it was 7 or 8 or something like that, but there are.
But it's also the primary concern. This ain't a lot.
Don was gonna yell at him.
Right, I gotta be up here or Dawn's like, she'll start throwing stuff at me again. So the primary concern when we negotiated the development agreement was the property line along Stoneleigh. In this case, for me, the primary concern is my 181 unit apartment building. So Vern and I talked about this from the beginning, that we don't want to see 5 AM deliveries and trucks backing up and beeping. The best part of this being they get typically 1 and, oh my God, might be 2 deliveries a day. So we're not super concerned, but I think my development ordinance says if it's within X amount feet of the residential, it can't be before 7, I think. Something like that. So, I mean, I hear you and yes, but because of the way they do their business and setting, because Aldi doesn't get 27 deliveries from 27 different vendors like other grocers. It's so compacted into one truck that it reduces truck traffic, right? Reduces all kinds of issues. So that's one reason we vetted this fully in our team. Like, hey, we have all these really nice apartments hundreds of feet away. Hey, Vern, what are you going to do about that? So we talked this through a lot. So.
Any other questions or comments?
I still want to go back to the other, I think in terms of the hierarchy on this was addressing the price elevation, which I think they've done a reasonable job. The other two was the northeast corner, or what would be the southwest corner of Hilltop and Olive. And we've had discussions with the developer preparing some type of product in there that I think we can, as a condition of the if the commission acts tonight, that they come back with something. I think they have enough guidance now of what's proposed there. Then the other thing would be the Olive Boulevard streetscape, and there's been some discussions between the Aldi development and the subdivision developer who's responsible for the street trees in there. That has to get resolved. In the end, it doesn't matter who does it, but there are probably about 10 street trees that would have to be applied along that 400-foot length. There.
So on the element at the corner of Hilltop, so we're going to hire we were hiring a public space designer. I interviewed her this week, number 1. And number 2, we're actually putting a provision in our lease with Aldi that says at our cost, because as I expressed my concern sort of spatially about where this can go, it may need to be up in their parking lot. And if it is, okay, but we wanted to provide for that in the lease document that at our cost, we're going to have the rights to do that with their consent. And so I want to do this right. So that's why we're going to hire a public space designer. Cause I don't know, right? I'm going to hire an expert and she's going to make recommendations. And so my hope is that we can bifurcate that from their approval, because it'll be stuck on me as the master developer of the project. And I thought it was important to note that we put a provision for this in their lease document so that it's not well, then I have to go see if Aldi's okay with it. Well, I do, but I've already got a pre-approved ability to do that, number 1. And number 2, on the street trees, Carlos and I have been talking. I was under the impression those were being installed as part of our MoDOT plans. I don't think they are. So the question I have that we have to dig into, that I need to dig into with our team is, given the width of the sidewalk, where are they going? I haven't had time to address that. But again, those street trees are in MoDOT's right of way, not on their site. So again, that should be on me as well. I thought we were installing street trees and grates along the entire run of Olive. What I've come to find out after Carlos brought it up, I pulled the plans up someday this week and I said, wait, there's a tree grate. Uh-oh. Right. But I don't understand why they're not there. So I need to dig into that with our team and honestly with MoDOT and CBB and find out what happened and why they're not there. I know the lights are there because we picked those and those are installed, except for the 2 that my team missed, which are being replaced in a couple of weeks down on the east end. But I'll get the street tree issue resolved as well.
Very good. All right.
But again,
thanks.
it's not even on their lot. So I got to take care of it because it's in the right of way. I probably may have to get a supplemental permit from MoDOT to install those because I can't just put them in since they're in the right of way.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Okay, I think at this point in time, I don't think we have, unless you guys have further
No.
comments or anything. I think at this point in time, we'll take on some public comments.
Okay.
And we'll ask audience members if they have any public comments related to this agenda item. Please raise your hand or come on up. Anyone? Come on. Remember to state your name and address for the record.
Okay, Lindsay McGraw, 1 Von Price Lane. Hello. My question was just, will there be direct access to the Aldi's off of that Price entrance, which I think is really just to the apartment building? I kind of want to know, because I also live off of Price, what that's gonna look like as far as like traffic with the both people shopping at Aldi's and also the delivery truck. So that's my question.
Great, thank you for your question.
Chairman, if I can
Absolutely.
address that, I'll wait till. So Price is a primary collector road for the city of Olivet. In there, and we receive funding for road maintenance and improvements because of that designation. In there, there is one entrance off of Price, which is directly across from the entrance from the Olive Crossing development in there. Per ordinance, it's required that they run that a roadway all the way across to the Hilltop extension on the eastern side of that building. They were required to do a traffic analysis and study as part of this development that goes back a couple of years ago. And that information is still online in there, but there will be an access point here. I think the intent is that deliveries, which would be in the morning, would be coming off of Price kind of clockwise into the development and then in the development and then getting to their area here. The
Carlos, can you please show the civil plan? I think that even shows kind of the diagrams
let's see
of the
here.
truck.
Yes. I don't remember which one it was.
Yeah, I can't remember either.
Yes. So for deliveries, they'll be kind of going in a clockwise rotation, coming from Olive onto Price, entering the development and then getting off the road and then backing in. And then when they leave, they would continue down the road extension and then head out towards Olive Boulevard via the Hilltop extension in there. The primary commercial traffic in there, or that parking lot, will be out on the eastern side, closer to the Olive access point or the signals at Olive and Hilltop, though that does not mean that they can't utilize accessing Price Road to the west.
Right.
So the goal here is hopefully that we balance and distributed enough of that traffic and made it easier or accessible to get to Olive as opposed to Price as much as possible. So.
Good. Thanks for your comments.
Mhm.
Anyone else? Seeing none in the audience, Carlos, you please check online.
There's nothing, no one online. But I did, will note that I did provide you some information from the city social media Facebook page in there regarding comments that were received. And there's a couple that I'd like to kind of quickly address in there. But for the majority, a majority of the comments were positive and in support of the development. We're glad to have Aldi here and becoming a corporate resident here in Olivet. There were a couple of questions. One is, why do we need a grocery store? And there, I'll note that the initial RFQ that was issued back in 2016 was to encourage a development here that would include or be anchored with a grocery store. So that was the request of the city. And it's been a part of our 2006 plan. And if you go even further back, an effort that the city has been trying to do. And there, we currently only have one full service grocery store. That's the East Seoul Oriental Grocery, where you can buy products of fresh produce, milk and other liquids at the store. But on the eastern side of the city, and especially south of the Hilltop neighborhood, we don't in there. The original proposal by the developer was to try to anchor 85,000 square foot grocer, but that didn't work after a couple of years. They modified the plans and did the current mixed use that you see, that was before the city, not right now. Reduced that square footage to 40,000 square feet. And again, the market there there was just not a market for a grocer that size. And then in the most recent update, which we have before us now, they reduced that to about 20,000 square feet and expanded the type of grocers that could be there. And the developer was able to engage in a contract with Audi. And we're grateful and glad that they did to provide our second grocer and a grocer on the east side of the city. And also being cognizant that, just north of this in the Arrowhead, Hilltop, Collingwood, Brightling area, 1/7 of our residents live in that area. And that area is also one of our most affordable areas in the community. And not everybody has the ability or the fortunates to drive to the grocery stores that are a mile, a quarter mile, or regardless of what those distances are. That closest Chinooks, you have to get onto Olive, go to the other side of 170, get the Wharfs, and go all the way around, even though, in a crow's nest, yes, it's probably a 10-minute walk, but it isn't in reality. So we made efforts to ensure, that this area was included, close, and accessible to a full grocer beyond just the CVS in there. So we're glad that it was by design, not by default, that this development and this inclusion of a grocer into this area. Unfortunately, an Audi is in there. The other comment there was, well, the decision's been made, so why are we going through this process? And they are correct. The decision to anchor this development or place a development in this into Olive Crossing, that was a decision that was made several years ago, that was reflective of the community consensus from our comprehensive plan. The council has gone through iterations and iterations to get us to this point in here. What is being reviewed, or what's actually before the commission, is a review of the structure for an Audi's grocery. It's not the review of an Audi's. It was not intended to be posted or interpreted that way. It's not the review that a grocer, it is an aesthetic review for the petitioner, who happens to be Audi, the grocer, in the site. And that is what the commission is. We do value the resident input in there, and they are correct. This is not the venue to have a discussion of whether we need a grocer or what type of grocer it should be. It is more about what this grocer should look like. And that's what we're here. But I think there was some really good, healthy discussions that took place in there, and appreciate, again, Ms. Fleming having that interaction with our community on that. So.
Yeah, very good, Carlos. Thanks for those clarifications. I appreciate it. I'll give one more last chance if there's any public comments in the audience. Seeing none. I'll ask you, do we want to have any more discussion amongst the commission? Seeing none, do I hear a proposed motion?
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead, Carol.
I'd like to make a motion.
Okay. Go ahead.
I'm getting there.
Sorry.
I'd like to motion to approve the petition for design review in accordance with section 400.2180, according to site plan, community design, and concept stormwater management plan reviews for the construction of a one-story, 20,664 square foot grocer on lots 1 and lot 2 of Olive Crossing development in accordance with ordinance number 2675 and number 2725, as presented in the memorandum from the Department of Planning and Community Development dated December 7th, 2023, subject to staff conditions noted therein, with the additional condition on the facade design of the Nichiha thank you, on the west side, on the west facing side. Yeah.
Are you done with your motion?
I hope so.
Yes. Okay, go ahead, please.
I'm not exactly sure that exact square footage that you mentioned.
How about approximate?
Yeah, approximate.
Yeah.
When we did this on lot 3, when I was here for the approval of that, putting an exact square footage of a building before the CDs are done, what I don't want to do is have somebody make an issue and say, wait a minute, we measured and a building's 20,669 square feet. So when you all voted to approve lot 3, you said, I think, and Carlos, I don't know if you can check, I think it just says 1-story building. I don't actually know that it had a size on it, or definitely approximately something variable, just so there's not a legal issue later if the building, because what if they expand?
What if I amend my motion to say, instead for the construction of a 1-story and give the specific square footage, or say approximately 20,660.
Well, I think even just referencing our plans that we submitted, we wouldn't be able to deviate from that. I just don't have the exact square footage or how that's being measured. If it's
1-story garage.
technically outside face of wall, I just don't know where that number is specifically. So just wanted to have some flexibility so we wouldn't have to come back and amend something if
Yeah, sure.
if it's off by, you know.
I think that if we just leave
Just
these,
one-
we have the plans that they presented, so we know kind of from there. So I think if we do leave off the square footage. I think
Okay,
that-
Thank you.
let's leave off the square footage then.
Yeah, yeah. A motion's been made and amended by Carol Wagner. Do I hear a second?
Second.
And seconded by Tim Spiegelglass. Carlos, would you please call the vote?
Therefore. Kind of noting. Thank you, Laura. So noting on the recommended conditions in there that, I think we've resolved condition number 1 regarding the primary exterior building materials and that price road elevation. Ms. Wagner incorporated in her motion. I think the developers addressed the streetscape issue and those trees in there. I think the commission is comfortable with the signage based on discussions. The southwest corner is being developed by the developer of the Olive Crossing, and we'll come back here. And then they also have to do a boundary adjustment plat that'll be coming down further down the pike, but that'll combine those 2 properties and remove that 1 entranceway in there. So just want to make sure everybody's aware.
Good clarifications. Appreciate it, Carlos.
Yes, sir. All right, on the motion. Commissioner Spiegelglass,
Approve.
Commissioner Rosenberg,
Approve.
Commissioner Ragsdale,
Approved.
Commissioner Lewis,
Approved.
Approved.
Approved. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks for very good presentation.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Carol.
One question, this was asked of me at the public workshop the other night, but when do you anticipate that the grocery store actually open?
The Q1 and 25.
25.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah,
Right.
so we're looking at starting this Q3
Q1.
of next year, in 24, and then we'll be building it and open up Q1 of 25.
Very good. Very good. Thank you.
Thanks for everybody's time. Have a great holiday.
You too. Appreciate it.
thanks for.
Okay, we'll move on now to if you guys don't mind, just try to keep your conversations we still have to finish our meeting. So if you don't mind, if you do have a conversation, just go out into the lobby area, if that'd be okay. Thank you. Okay, we'll move on now to believe we're on. Sorry. Believe we're on other business, and it's item A, meeting minutes. Do we have meeting minutes? I do
do.
see.
Yes, you did.
Chairman,
Yeah,
I'd like to
Carol.
acknowledge the receipt of the meeting minutes for November 16, 2023.
Acknowledged. Great. If anybody has any questions or changes, please speak to Dawn about that. All right, we'll move on to reports. Carlos.
Our next meeting is on Thursday, December 21st. We do have a petition for a new home, and then 2 petitions, one involving a pool and the other, both of them involving a retaining wall in there. So and if anything else comes in, we may try to take a look at it. We're trying to keep the January 4th meeting open to see if it will be necessary or not. If there is, it may be more of a work session to go over the comprehensive plan in there. So
I'll be out of town. I know that. I
So-
have a work trip.
okay.
I think a workshop to go over that would be fantastic.
Okay. So we'll look at that in there. I don't anticipate any other petition applications coming in right away that would be pending in that. After that, let's see, in terms of any additional updates, I don't have anything. Don, do you have, I mean, don't forget.
Oh, sorry, there was a page of updates. You did, you caught me. Yeah.
I mean, but beyond the traditional stuff, I didn't know if there was.
Oh, no, I don't have anything to add. Thank you.
Missing?
You know, I really have nothing else to add at this point. There's city news that Carlos has at the bottom. We had a wonderful turkey trot event. And after 10 years, our total contributions after 10 years is over $100,000 to the Harvey Kornblum Food Pantry.
Wow.
So you guys have done an amazing job. There will be coffee with the mayor on December 13th, and the guest will be your council.
Fantastic.
We're gonna kind of talk about the successes and the things that we are proud of. And I will say this, I know I've been here a long time. It's God, but what I am very, very proud of, that when I first came and the fathers of this community that created our bylaws spoke to me about the history of what never got done and what got put on a piece of paper and just kept on a shelf. I am so excited that we are, and I'm gonna call it the second comprehensive plan. While I know it's an update, it is a wonderful success story of the city of Olivet. And you and the folks before you and those in heaven now, they've all brought this to where we are today. And that's an amazing success story. So we're blessed. And to have them come and do something a little different in our community, it's about time. I'm excited to see and hear that we got a little more than what is a typical and the average. So that's all good. You know, we're collecting for the pets, we're collecting for toys, and it's just a wonderful time. Our new community center opened up. If you're connected to the city, you're gonna see the blast from Kiana Fleming, from wine tasting to mixology, to yoga, to you name it. You know, our doors are open and you guys have done a great job with it. So thank you much. Happy Hanukkah, Merry Christmas, Kwanzaa, and happy healthy New Year. If we don't meet December 21st. Okay.
Fantastic. Anybody else have anything to further add? That being said, happy holidays, everybody, or we'll see everybody, the next, do we have another meeting or no? We will. Okay, we will. All right, well.
Oh, let me know if you.
Will do,
No, I'm
will
not
do.
for. I'm not for.
Okay, we'll adjourn at 8:59.
Good job.
I wanted to keep